governors of central banks, ladies and gentlemen, executive directors and alternate executive directors of the IMF and the World Bank, resident representatives of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group in the Central African Republic, partners and friends of the Central African Republic, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. At the outset, allowed me extend my greatest thanks to His Excellency Faustin-Archange Touadéra, the President of the Republic of Central Africa and Head of State, who authorized the holding of the edition of this 2025 of 2025 of the African Caucus. My thanks also go to all my peers, governors of the World Bank and the IMF, who have chosen the Central African Republic to host these meetings, who have come out in mass to Bangui. I will not forget the representatives of the Bretton Woods Institutions, as well as the executive directors within the African office of the IMF and the World Bank. I would like to extend my thanks for their presence and their support. To all of you, I wish you a warm welcome, Central African Republic. Our infrastructure has been prepared for the occasion, and just 1 week ago, nothing of that you see around you existed. Indeed, on Thursday, 24 July, we received a cargo plane transporting 36 tons of equipment from Asia. Equipment expected the 21st of July that was delayed because of a violent tropical storm in Mekong. Let us also add that that was not the initial option. 60 tons of equipment was supposed to travel by sea, and that was severely disrupted given the recent custom tariff measures imposed on China. So this has caused a delay of delivery for about 1 week. But nevertheless, we are here with Plan B. Plan B consisted in import all the equipment from another country, from Africa. However, some administrative challenges and transport would not enable us to go for Plan B. So Plan C is what we chose. This was to order from China and have it delivered by air freight, air cargo in Bangui. Why am I explaining this? Because it ideally explains the challenges that we are facing. The lack of infrastructure, under-industrialization, significant disruption of supply chains, heavy dependence on foreign markets, low human capacity, and so forth. And that is the core of the central theme of this year's meeting: resilient infrastructure, human capital, and green asset, essential levers for strong, inclusive, and sustainable growth in Africa. But this story is also that of a prime minister who is committed, together with the entire government under the leadership of His Excellency Faustin-Archange Touadéra, President of the Republic and Head of State, who have spared no effort for this meeting to take place in Bangui, and the circumstances we selected to hold such a high-level meeting. It's also the story of a united nation under the leadership of its uncontested leader, once and for all, close the chapter of military and cyclical crisis and build a new story, strengthening its resilience and development for the betterment of its people. Finally, it's the story of some 800 people who, behind the scenes in various activities, have worked tirelessly so that we arrive where we are today. Therefore, Your Excellencies, I would like to ask you to applaud each and every one of those. let me take this opportunity to remind you of the importance of this unique institution, which is the African Caucus, that must be known beyond the borders of Africa and beyond the IMF and the World Bank to speak with one voice to our partners. To do so, it is critical that our declaration, the Bangui Declaration, be adopted by the African Union, that the African Caucus be endowed with a secretariat so that dedicated people can work continuously on economic and financial issues, so that the African Caucus can be visible on all economic and platforms in order to continue the advocacy in a context where we see a retreat of multilateralism. In line with your highest instructions, Your Excellency, I have the pleasure of announcing that the Central African Republic brought 2 innovations to support that will. This is the creation of a specialized channel, African Caucus TV, in partnership with Africa 24, our Pan-African channel, and the creation of an internet website dedicated to African Caucus that will henceforth be used by all countries that take the chair of the African Caucus, that will preserve the records of our work and especially our victory. It's together that we will continue to face problems and challenges to which we should find solutions in a holistic and comprehensive way. The African Caucus, therefore, is what we fully subscribe to. We also will use these meetings to explore new frontiers into artificial intelligence, green wealth, green and blue economies, in order to harness all these solutions that can help our continent to mobilize resources and finance our investments. As it's important to recall that we are meeting at a watershed moment where foreign investment for social sectors such as education and health have been suspended. And we have to find a way to finance these important sectors from our own resources and with innovative means. Development challenges cannot be met without partnerships such as those expected and defended by NEPAD and the global and integrated strategy, laying the foundations for an open economy that create wealth and jobs, especially for young people, within solidarity-based societies. This effort must be sustained by innovative actions that decisive and generous, such as the reconversion or the cancellation of our debt. Excellency President of the Republic, Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are certain that the meetings of the 2025 African Caucus will spare no effort in seeking solutions to give concrete content to Africa's development and promote energetic and imaginative solutions for the most vulnerable people who are facing many challenges. Allow me a last call to donors and technical and financial partners to support fragile countries such as the Central African Republic in organizing events of this kind that will enable to bring about the change of perception of our country and speed up capacity building. As, believe me, during the last few months prior to the holding of this meeting, all suppliers had to raise their standards and work relentlessly in order to meet the standards for such a meeting. To all our invited guests, we want to share the experience of the Central African Republic, be our ambassadors throughout the continent and of Africa and beyond. I cannot conclude without expressing our sincerest gratitude to the President of the World Bank, Ajay Banga, and the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Madam Kristalina Georgieva, for their constant commitment alongside the African nations. We also commend constant and sustained efforts by all who have supported us in this process. We want to make special mention to our special guests, the President of the Republic, the Head of State, Mr. Tony Elumelu, that we all need no introduction, Mr. Donald Kaberuka, who is present here, and a rising star of AI, Mrs. Kate Gallo, who will participate in this meeting, the 2025 African Caucus. And finally, we wish every success to this very important meeting. Thank you for your kind attention.
To present the next person, I will share with you a Sango expression. We also have people. We have people of quality. And it is thus that I wish to introduce here our next speaker, Ms. Kate Gallo.
Your Excellency, Professeur Président, Faustin-Archange Touadéra, Your Excellency, Chairperson of the African Caucus Minister of Finance and Budget, Hervé Ndoba, Your Excellencies, Ministers and Governors from all 54 African nations, Your Excellencies, all protocol observes, Bara Lamingi. Bonjour à tous. Good morning, everyone. From Algeria to Zimbabwe to Cabo Verde to Lesotho, it is a real pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Kate Gallo, and I stand before you not just as the founder and CEO of Amini AI, but as a proud daughter of this soil. My family is from here, Central African Republic. I was raised in France, studied and worked across the UK and the US, and like many of our brightest minds do, I left the biggest tech company in the world, NVIDIA, and decided to come back here. Why? Because I believe in building from within. Because I believe in Bangui, in Bissau, in Bujumbura. Because I believe that the next revolution is not happening in Silicon Valley. It is being written right here, in Accra, in Kampala, in Yaoundé, in Harare. We are not a footnote in the story of AI. We are the authors of a new chapter, one that is bold, one that is sovereign, and one that is unstoppable. As long as it is easier to launch an African startup in Delaware than in Dar es Salaam, Dakar, or Tunis, we've got work to do. And us, the new generation, we are ready to do that work. So who are we, the new generation? We are a new generation of African women. We walk in the footsteps of giants, stand on the shoulders of elders who have paved the way for us to claim our space. From my sisters Bogolo Kenewendo in Botswana, Alamura Bet in Libya, to the women of Morocco, Tunisia, Mali, and Algeria, from Ethiopia to Seychelles, from Nigeria to Namibia, we are present. We are present in boardrooms, we are present in labs, in fields, in senates, and on global stages. This isn't about inclusion for the sake of it. It is about unleashing the full power of Africa. We are a new generation of sovereign green wealth. At my startup, Amini, we use data to measure and protect the natural capital, breaking away from centuries of extraction and exploitation, from Zambia to South Africa's minerals, to Liberia and Mozambique's agricultural lands, to Gabon and Rwanda's forests. In Sierra Leone, we are helping restart rice production, cutting down millions in imports, because with the right data, our land can feed our people. In Guinea, we are enabling climate resilience with advanced risk modeling. Amini's data and AI platform is unlocking a new era, moving our natural capital from extraction to regeneration using data. Because data creates transparency, transparency creates trust, and trust brings investments. But let's be clear, our data must never be another tool for exploitation, because true sovereignty begins with control of our own data. We are facing a digital divide, but not only. We are also facing a data divide, where data from Chad, Eritrea, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Sudan is missing from training the large language models and the AI chatbots that our populations are using. We are also facing a compute divide, where Togo, Sao Tome, and the Gambia can't access the necessary power, electricity, connectivity, and compute infrastructure to train models locally. 90% of the world's data centers are concentrated in two countries, US and China, while the rest of the 10% mostly in Europe. And Africa, where we have the youngest, we are the fastest growing continent, we are barely equipped. That's why at Amini, we are building a new generation of African infrastructure. One that is green, powered by renewable, one that is shared, and one that creates our own path into the future of AI. In Côte d'Ivoire, we are building sovereign data pipelines. In Barbados, we are deploying micro data centers and showing how refarming underutilized spectrum can expand connectivity without having to increase physical cell towers. And now in Benin, Tanzania, and Malawi, we aspire to do the same. Infrastructure is not just cable and servers, it is sovereignty. But this is only possible with your support, policymakers, financiers, and champions for the new generation. From Mauritania, Comoros to Eswatini, we are a new generation of innovation rising. A generation proving that African-born innovation can export itself to the world. With our ancestral brothers and sisters in Barbados, our GovTech startup Amini launched the first local context-based large language model for an entire nation accessible via WhatsApp. In the same, we have equipped the head of state's cabinet with AI agents to support their decision-making. We are showing how owning your own compute, connectivity, and data can boost our GDP by 1% every year. In Uganda, we are helping structure agricultural data to expand agricultural insurance to more farmers. In Kenya, we are enabling microfinance companies to build better risk credit profiles for farmers, exporting the same technology to Cambodia. This is not innovation for show. This is innovation for survival, for scale, for sovereignty, and true leapfrog. We are building product from the soil, not imported, not copy-pasted, but built by Africans for Africans. Resilient infrastructure, protected natural capital, sovereign data ecosystem. These are the building blocks of our future. I get asked all the time, what would it take for Africa to catch up in AI? But the question was never whether we can really catch up. The question is, will we claim AI as our equalizer? And that starts here today with you. So here is my ask to all of you. Invest in infrastructure. In Lesotho, Burundi, Guinea-Bissau, microdata center, connectivity alongside spectrum refarming. Fund local innovation in DRC, Equatorial Guinea, South Sudan through R&D financing. Modernize regulations. Fair tax structures, import duty, reform, and enabling frameworks that don't penalize African builders. Support data sovereignty. National strategies from Somalia to Djibouti that protect and unlock value. Guarantee regulatory stability, because in Madagascar, just like in Egypt, stability is a startup's oxygen. And last, choose to buy local. From African software to African AI to African cloud and African talent. Because every procurement decision you make is a vote for a future we want. From Nairobi to Windhoek, from Addis Ababa to Praia, to Port Louis to Bangui, right here, a new generation is rising. A generation that doesn't buy into extraction, but uses technology as a tool for liberation. We are not afraid, we are not waiting. We are building in garages, in classrooms, in cloud clusters powered by solar panels. This is our moment, our revolution, our AI future. I will leave you with our national slogan, Zokwezo, all people are people. Singila Migi, merci beaucoup, thank you.
I don't know.
peut vraiment présenter le prochain intervenant.
if we can really
Prochain intervenant,
introduce the next
monsieur
speaker,
Ce grand rendez-vous qui marque un tournant décisif
Mr.
pour la
Tony
République
Emile,
africaine, qui est en train de changer
founder
son
and
visage
chairman
à
of
l'échelle internationale depuis son
is
accession au
working
pouvoir.
on of United Bank of Africa.
Your Excellencies, Ministers, Central Bank Governors, esteemed representatives of the IMF and the World Bank, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, you permit me to stand on all the protocols already established. But thanks, Minister, handsome Minister, for this opportunity too. It is truly an honor to be here today. This gathering could not be timelier as we work together to amplify Africa's voice and shape a development path that reflects our unique needs and aspirations. We live in a highly volatile, complex world. It is a world where the rules-based order has been challenged, where we need to affirm and reaffirm our commitment to the idea of a global community. But as an African, I must be frank that this global community has not always served Africa's interests, not always ensured that Africa's voice is heard, or even has it been able to deliver for Africa. And Africa's voice not only needs to be heard, but has to be heard. Africa has solutions to so many of the world's problems. Our young people are the answer. We've seen Kate, we'll let Kate speak now. Our young people are the answer to the world's demographic crisis. Our minerals power the extraordinary technological changes we're seeing across the world. And our fields quite arable and can feed the world. But these African solutions, this African opportunity must be on African terms, must benefit African people, and must catalyze true value creation on the African continent. And it must be based on true partnerships, partnerships of equal and mutual respect. We must also be realistic as a people. African governments, our governments, must do better. And this is why yesterday when I was the president, I was quite fascinated that Mr. President takes time out of his busy schedule to go to university, the classroom, and teach mathematics to the up and young coming one. African leaders must do better if we are to deliver that opportunity to our next generation, and if we are to be truly heard in the community of nations. Africa needs to step up, and the time to do so is now. This year's theme, resilient infrastructure, human capital, and green assets, reflects what must be shared and what must be our shared priorities too, if Africa is to thrive. It captures the essence of what we must prioritize if Africa is to truly rise. Distinguished guests, let me begin with infrastructure. Across Africa, across our continent, we face a deep and persistent infrastructure gap. From roads to ports, power to internet connectivity, we lag behind. We cannot achieve prosperity without the foundations of modern development. Without addressing these gaps, we cannot unlock the growth and prosperity that our people deserve. And to bridge this gap, we must do three things. One, the discipline to strengthen our fiscal capacity. Very, very important. And two, we must drive efficiency across board and be able to unlock innovative financing, especially by inviting and enabling private sector to co-lead infrastructure development. The AI ambition and aspiration shared we just listened to cannot come to fruition if we do not improve access, tremendously improve access to electricity in Africa. Energy and access to electricity remains the biggest enabler or barrier to our progress as a continent. Up to 70% of our people lack access to electricity. In my home country, Nigeria, we generate less than 7,000 megawatts of electricity for over 200 million people. If we are to industrialize in Africa, if we want to create jobs in Africa, and if we want to participate meaningfully in the global AI revolution, we must invest aggressively in energy, from renewable to cleaner gas-based solutions. Imagine what Africa, or let's look at Nigeria with 7,000 megawatts for 200 million people. Imagine what that economy could become with 100,000 megawatts of electricity, reliable and affordable. It will change that country. And the same holds true for all of us across Africa. But I also believe that as African private sector, especially in the 21st century, should not just be about complaining only. We must also be part of the solution. So for us, through investments in Transcorp, one of our groups, and Edge Energies, we are working to solve this problem of generating power. We try to generate power. We export power also through the West African Power Pool, using gas from our oil to power our plants. And this is what I call Afro-capitalism. Afro-capitalism in action, calling private sector and becoming part of the problem of solving our public challenges. Afro-capitalism is the belief that the African private sector must take the lead in driving economic development. It is about long-term investments in key sectors that create both economic returns and social impact for all. But we know that success requires collaboration. To succeed, we need strong partnerships. Governments must create the right environment for businesses to succeed. And the private sector must bring capital and innovation to the table. But most importantly, our development partners must support Africa's realities, including recognizing gas as a viable transition fuel on our path to clean energy. Where we are today, we need to catch up so much, and we need a combination therapy to do so in our huge energy deficit. No resource is more valuable than our people, especially our youth. Africa is the youngest continent on Earth, with over 60,000 of our population under the age of 35. This presents both our greatest asset or our greatest risk. If empowered, our youth can transform Africa. If neglected, they can become a source of instability, not only to us in Africa, but to everyone everywhere, because poverty anyway is a threat to humanity and mankind everywhere. At the Tony Elumelu Foundation, again, our own approach to solving the problem. At the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we have empowered over 24,000 young entrepreneurs across all 54 African countries, each with a non-refundable seed capital of $5,000 to help them prove their ideas in hope that we can create more kids and more Steve Jobs for the continent. We have trained over 1.5 million youth, again, across all 55 African countries, and we have catalyzed through these people that we're empowering over 1.2 million jobs in Africa. These entrepreneurs are creating jobs, building businesses, and changing lives. And most importantly, signaling to those in their communities and neighborhoods that the way to success can also come from your ingenuity and creativity once the right environment is created. Distinguished guests, let me leave us with 3 messages. 1, Africa's development is our collective responsibility. No one else will do it for us. No one but us will develop Africa. People will wait and watch to see what we as African private sector do before they can come in to co-invest with us. And they will also wait to see what African leaders, government, public sector are doing. Are we paying lip service or actually demonstrating that we need massive foreign capital investment into Africa to help us catalyze and transform the society economy? No one will build this continent for us. We must lead. The second message is that power, energy, access to electricity is everything. No industrial revolution can happen without electricity. We must therefore prioritize energy. Without power, there can be no progress. Just as simple as that. And the third message is that we must invest in our youth. This is what I preach everywhere I go to, because all of us here were once, much younger youth. We are where we are today by, to a large extent, luck, because the environment we have is not one that is deliberately and intentionally supporting of entrepreneurship. Now that we are where we are at, we must not take the ladder off. We must reinforce it and use every part of us and our successes to catalyze a new generation of African leaders, the young ones in Africa. Listening to Kate, I was so excited listening to a young African in this mode. And she told me they are doing a second fundraising. And Kate, I want to tell you that we would invest. She reached out to us. We must invest in our youth. They are not just for our future. They are not just our future. They are indeed our present. Together, by working across public and private sectors and in partnership with institutions like the IMF and World Bank, we can build an Africa that is truly resilient, inclusive, and full of opportunity for everyone. I commend the growing focus of global institutions on Africa. I sit on the IMF Advisory Council on Entrepreneurship and Growth, and I'm quite pleased with our emphasis on job creation as a path to lasting growth in Africa. I also applaud my good friend Ajay Banga's Mission 300 initiative at the World Bank, an ambitious goal by a man that understands what truly is critical for development in the 21st century, to connect 300 million Africans to power. This, if achieved, will be truly transformative and catalytic. Distinguished guests, Africa is ready. Let us seize this moment and build the prosperous, empowered continent that our people deserve. Thank you, Mr. President.
Your Excellency Prime Minister, Head of State and Government, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Minister of Finance and Budget, current Chairperson of the African Caucus, Minister of Economy, Planning and International Cooperation of the Central African Republic, co-chairperson of the African Caucus, ladies and gentlemen, chairpersons of the institutions of the Republic, ladies and gentlemen, ministers and African governors of the World Bank Group and International Monetary Fund, ladies and gentlemen, governors of central banks, ladies and gentlemen, executive directors and alternate executive directors of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group, ladies and gentlemen, resident representatives of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group, partners and friends of a Central African Republic, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, all participants. In the history of peoples and nations, there are meetings that mark a turning point, watershed moments where the willingness of the people are in line with the responsibilities of their leaders. They are unforgettable moments, moments that mark a pleasant story. And the Central African Republic is honored to host the meetings of the 2025 African Caucus. It is with a great pleasure and a profound feeling of honor that I take the floor today on the occasion of this African dialogue in order, on behalf of the people of the Central African Republic and on my own behalf, extend our most warmly greetings, welcome you to the Central African Republic. Your presence here in such great numbers attest not only to the importance that you place in the African Caucus meetings, but also the genuine interest you have in the legitimate aspirations of our continent towards a sustainable structural transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, partners, participants, the theme chosen for 2025 is resilient infrastructure, human capital, and green asset, essential levers for strong, inclusive, and sustainable growth. This so aptly resonates with the current challenges that our nations are facing. It translates the willingness of the governors and development partners to think differently about our joint future, putting at the center of our thoughts the condition of equal prosperity based on economic, social, and environmental justice. It underscores three critical pillars of our development. Firstly, it underscores the importance of infrastructure that can resist shocks. Secondly, it reminds us of the critical role that human capital that is well trained in knowledgeable of the latest information for the development of our nation. Finally, it also pinpoints the need for sustainable management of natural resources in order to achieve a solid, fair economic development that it respects the environment. These three elements combined are considered critical for sustainable economic growth and shared prosperity, all for the betterment of our citizens. During your meetings, you will discuss in depth all the challenges related to the urgent need to speed up access to energy for all at affordable prices. That is a precondition for any development in which our African economies so desperately need for fair, equal energy transition, and the need to sustainably reduce the landlocked nature of our countries to meet the institute and infrastructure requirements, enabling us to unleash the potential of the private sector for the integration of a green asset in our GDP to have access to innovative financing and thereby resolve the challenge of debt. The opportunities offered by technological advances, including digitalization and artificial intelligence, in the effort to promote sectors such as public finance, education, health, agriculture, and financial inclusion, and building national, regional capacity and the role of our multilateral development institutions. Distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, you are aware of the fact that the infrastructure needs in Africa are estimated around 170 billion US dollars per year, while our continent only receives a little bit less than 40 billion. The economic losses related to a lack of infrastructure and their negative impact on GDP growth on the continent is considerable. At the same time, domestic resource mobilization is slowing down, and illicit capital flows estimated $88 billion per year, according to the United Nations Conference on Development, undermines the financing capacity of traditional sources of financing through the mobilization of domestic resources and foreign aid, no longer enough to meet the growing need for infrastructure and the lack of resources in African countries. Nations, therefore, are compelled to increase their debt, and this leads to a rise in public debt, increase in debt GDP ratios, and increasing burdens of interest payments, particularly on non-concessional loans, and lead to a risk of unsustainable debt. In addition, the use of non-traditional creditors and private donors, often under non-concessional conditions through Eurobonds, have made debt restructuring even more complex. These have become more difficult to manage. In this context, it is therefore critical to adopt concrete strategies that are based on good governance, transparency, and accountability that give preference to financial sustainability of African economies, taking into account their specificities while developing innovative solutions for the financing needs on the African continent for infrastructure. These strategies could include optimizing domestic resource mobilization, debt swaps to finance priority sectors such as infrastructure, investment funds mixed financing, securitization of infrastructure, multilateral guarantee bonds, as well as public-private partnerships, tokenization and financing based on blockchain, climate financing, sovereign funds, diaspora bonds, land funds, and so forth. In addition, local currency solutions could increase financing while reducing exchange rate risks. Distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen, the development of infrastructure capable of resisting economic, environmental, and social shocks is critical for sustainable growth on Africa and accelerate the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The continent is suffering from a lack of infrastructure that hampers its economic development and hampers trade and the well-being of our people. These challenges are aggravated by the vulnerability of Africa to climate change, threatening existing infrastructure and call for more investment to enhance our resiliency. These, for example, could be building roads that can resist flooding, water systems adapted to drought, and water management, renewable sources, and an energy mix. In the face of these innumerable challenges, I urge your meeting to focus on major reforms which could remove identified constraints, such as strengthening fiscal capacity through better fiscal management, digitalization, the streamlining of fiscal management, and the reform of tax codes to promote equity and expand the tax base in order to support robust national resource mobilization. Strengthening the management of public investment and debt, improving the quality of spending and efficiency of fiscal governance are just as important. If we do a sound mapping of these reforms, we will achieve sustainable infrastructure reform and reduce the dependence of the continent on external debt. Green financing also paved the way for new economic opportunities that we need to explore in your discussions, because Africa must invest in its productive capacity to reduce its vulnerability and build a robust and sustainable growth. Among our priorities are the need to further develop the special economic zones and regional agroparks. We also need to modernize infrastructure and strengthen regional connectivity by investing in multimodal transport, energy, and digital solutions based on development corridors. Likewise, trade facilitation between regions is necessary. They attest to the African Continental Free Trade Area. In order to strengthen institutional and tax independence, we need to promote policies that substitute imports. On a climate level, the green and blue economy approaches must be included in agriculture. And finally, one of our priorities remain strengthening human capital to meet the needs for our country's development based on strategic plans and visions that are forward-looking, aligning, for example, vocational training and research with the needs of industry and quality job creation. Ladies and gentlemen, partners, participants, allow me here also to mention my country's relationship with its development partners. Working with all these partners, whom I'd like to thank for their multifaceted contributions, my country succeeds in meeting its challenges little by little. With the contribution of our partners, we give preference to improving living conditions of our people who want to break with this vicious circle of conflict and underdevelopment. At present, we should build on our gains, strengthen parallel humanitarian actions that are under-financed, and fully commit for sustainable development. The National Development Plan 2024-2028 of the Central African Republic builds on the peace building and economic recovery plan of 2023 and a political agreement with the Central African Republic of 6 February 2019. With the improvement of the security situation, the National Development Plan enables us to move from humanitarian work to development, from emergency to emergence, to speed up economic development, create jobs, reduce poverty, and improve the well-being of our people, especially the young ones. Our vision for 2028 is the following. The Central African Republic should be prosperous, having quality, human capital, and resilient and sustainable infrastructure based on the rule of law that's more inclusive and the principles of good governance. Our priorities consist of investing more in human capital, energy, road infrastructure, digitalization, intelligent agriculture, to deal with climate change and shocks that further deepen the gap between fragile countries and advanced countries, as well as the energy revolution. This, in turn, can contribute to meet a large number of challenges our country is facing. To achieve this, the Central African Republic will need additional financing, including concessional resources. I therefore take this opportunity to welcome the simplification of the IDA procedure aimed at making financing options more simple, more accessible, and faster in order to have a greater impact on a larger scale in a faster way. At a time where the Central African Republic is co-organizing with the Kingdom of Morocco a roundtable which will take place in Casablanca this year for the financing of its National Development Plan, I invite the financial and technical partners as well as investors to join us in writing this new chapter for the development and emergence of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, partners, participants, I would like to conclude by recalling that the Bretton Woods Institutions are our allies as we strive to manage our destiny. This African Caucus must be the opportunity for soul searching as well as a renewed commitment to come up with African solutions to African challenges. I therefore invite you to benefit from this meeting, to go in depth to the financing challenges that our continent is facing in order to agree on recommendations that our governors will present to the leadership of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. I express the hope that these meetings will also be the trigger for strategic investment, strengthened cooperation, and renewed solidarity among our nations. May your stay in Central African Republic meet your commitment that is rich in encounters, fertile in ideas, and marked by sustainable development. With this, I wish you productive discussions and deliberations, and I hereby solemnly declare open the work of the 2025 African Caucus. Thank you for your attention.